2015 Dodge Grand Caravan. This is the first front wheel drive on the channel. These are a lot more extensive, so bear with me. I'm going to try my best to keep it short. All right, this is the transmission, this whole thing. So what we got to do, we got axles we got to take out. Front tires got to come off. Ball joints got to come out to get the axles out. This cross member has to come off the bottom. All of these mounts have to come off. The starter has to come off, which is up in there. And then the motor has to be hung from the top to take off the motor mounts that need to be taken off to get this thing out. I start this on the top and work my way down. All right, here we are on the top of the motor. Battery's got to come out. Battery tray's got to come out. This pump has to come off because it has some of the bolts in it. We got cooler lines here. We got the shifter cable here. We got the motor mount here. All of that stuff has to come off. And then we figure out a place to hang the motor from. Oh, this one's gonna get a little bit tricky. I'm gonna put a 2x4 here and one on the other side, and I'll show you that pick thing I use to hold the motor up. But here we go, let's start getting all this stuff apart. It's hard for me to put the camera somewhere where you can see it, so it's probably just gonna be apart next time you see it. Not really anything tricky to this stuff. Battery, get that out of your way, and then there'll be a lot more open. All right, battery's out. Now we got 113 here, one here, and one tucked right down there. And this battery tray will come out. All right, battery tray's out. Now you can see the two motor mount bolts you got to take out here and here. But I leave all that on there until I get everything else done, including the bottom. And then I hang it. That way this doesn't have to be hung, and that cherry picker thing doesn't have to be in my way the whole time I'm working on all this. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, which is two nuts under here, 15s. And that'll come off, and take this shifter cable off, which is just this little safety clip, and then these little things press in, and then you just pop it up off of there. And then these two come out, little clips. Then I'm going to take all the case bolts out that I can get from up here. Then it's right down here. You can see, well, right down here, this 18 and that 18, and there's one underneath there. Nope, it's right there. 1, 2, 3. They are tight, super tight, and hard to get off. So I usually use a really long extension and an 18 wobble if I can get it on there. If not, then you got to do it by hand, and it's a pain to get a ratchet in there and get those off, but it can be done. And then this heat shield, of course, 10mm, and there's another one underneath to take that heat shield off. And then there'll be some more bolts underneath you got to get off of there too. But that's what we got to do up here, so that's what I'm going to get started on. All right, here we are after everything's taken apart. You got all your wires taken off. That thing's out of the way. I just fold it right up here. And then belt housing bolts, all the ones that I could get to from up here. And then I took these clips out, but I didn't pull them out yet because I don't want it leaking. And I'm about to work underneath it, so I'm gonna leave those there. All right, so now we're gonna go underneath. I got all those off. Let's go. All right, next thing is taking the tires off. All right, now that the tires are off, axle nut, 1.25 inches. Both sides, take the axle nuts off. All right, now we're underneath. And the first thing I do is take ball joint nuts off. One there, one on the other side. Get a ratchet wrench on there. Another trick is if you take that axle nut off first and then you push this in like that, then it gives you enough clearance right here to get a ratchet wrench on there and it not get stuck. Yeah, twist that and give you some room too. So this is where the wrench will get stuck. You can't get it out. You push this in and you can get it out. And that lets you get this nut off too. A lot easier. Same on the other side. Next thing I do is take a hammer and hit it right here on the actual knuckle part. it smacks and it comes loose. So now we'll do the same thing on this side. Since it's already turned, I'll just hit the back of it here. Now we can straighten this back up. Now you can pull this down, slide it out, and take this axle out. Just like that. Okay, that's your 2 axles out of that end. Now what I do is take this cross member off right here. 1 big bolt here, mount bolts, and then 3, 4. Take this thing off right here. And this is motor mount stuff, so this is why I leave that one on the top hooked up, so the engine can hang without falling out. And then I'll hang it last thing. 16 millimeter. Okay, after that cross member's off, it opens up a lot of this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the axles the rest of the way out. This one, you just pop a pry bar in there and it pops right out. This one, this is probably the hardest part of the job. Has a bracket. That nut, that bolt up there, and that bolt right there, and that bolt right there. And they are hard to get to because there's no way to get to them. So what I usually do is a long 18 millimeter ratchet wrench from right here whoosh, to get that one. The other 2, I take a short 3-inch ratchet and a short 15 millimeter, and I get up there and stick my arm right up in here. And you can see my hand up here, so you can get to this one and the other one. So you just got to kind of finagle away, and it's hard to get up in there. All right, now that you got all the bolts out of there, this thing has to fold forward like this, so it gets out of the way of that pump. And as you work it out, it's gonna fold that way more and more, because that pump gets in the way. So you pull it out and just finagle this thing around to where it'll come out of there. All right, after you get the axles out, then you got this bolt here, this 18 millimeter, that's part of that mount that we took those 3 off on the top that were in the back. And you got torque converter nuts in here, and this mount right here, this whole entire mount comes off, 3/15. All right, so now we're going to take these torque converter bolts out, and we're going to turn the front of the engine by the crankshaft, which is through this hole. And it's a 1 1/16 inch socket on the front of there. $18 millimeter. Round to the next one. All right, if I was just to put this on here and start turning it, it would not take it off. See, it just stops. But if you get it turning first and then jab it on there, get it turning and then jab it on there. Look at that. I'll turn it around to the next one. Should be 4. Get your thing spinning and then put it on there. Turning it over, and you have to do it by hand to break it loose, which you can do with the electric ratchet. That's number 4. Now we turn it to make sure, and bam. Now that all the torque converter bolts are out, we're gonna get, these are the 2 starter bolts, take those out. This is the last top bell housing bolt, take that out. And all the rest of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the very last one is right there. And that one is gonna stay in and hold everything in while I let this back down, put the pick on it to hold it up, and then undo that top motor mount. And then hang it, bring the whole thing down a little bit, and then pull that last bolt after the jack's under it, and then down, out it comes. So here we go. All right, now the only thing holding this transmission to the engine is this last bolt up here, which I will take out once I get everything hung. So now the next step is to let the car down and put the pick on top of it to hold the engine up, and then take that last motor mount off. All right, here we are back on the top side. This has to go from fender to fender, and then it holds wherever you chain it from with that come along. So a lot of cars have it where you can just put it right here on the fender and they have good support underneath. On this, there is nothing underneath, so it would just crush this. So what I do is I pick this up, put a 2x4 in there over to the front support, and a 2x4 from here over to the front support. Take this off because it's in the way, and then set the picker on the 2x4 that's here and the 2x4 that's here. And then we're going to put a chain on this motor. A couple bolts down here, take off and put a chain where the chain comes up like right here. And then that picker will hook on there and hold this whole thing up. I'll show you how that works. Here we go. Okay, now that we have the weight off of everything and it's on this picker, it is solid. Hung it by a couple bolts down there. Now we got the weight off of the mount right here, so now we're going to take those 2 bolts out. Alright, it is now hanging only by the chain. Can kind of move this thing around. And it's okay that when I took it loose, the whole thing kind of came forward, because it needs to come forward for that tranny to come down and out anyway. So it's in the perfect spot right now. So now I'm gonna let it down with this. Let it down and take this bottom part of the mount off. Then the last thing to do is take that last bolt out of the back and pull it down with the jack. All right, now you can see the big gap. I let it down way down. Now you gotta take this bolt off. And then there is these 1, 2, 3 to take this mount off. Then you pick it back up a little bit and then raise it up, and it'll be ready to come out. Okay, got the weight off of it. And another thing I forgot, but you got to get this bottle, and washer fluid bottle or overflow bottle, and push it up out of the way. Like so, where it'll stay up out of the way, because this has to come forward to clear this. Okay, and here we go, breaking it loose. Okay, and it is back heavy. So I'm gonna wanna tilt this forward and then very carefully wiggle this out of here. it is very back heavy, so you have to be careful that it doesn't try to fall backwards off the jack. So anyway, that is a front wheel drive pull. Here we are, front wheel drive, pulled out. So tell me what you guys think. That was the first front wheel drive. This is one of the easier front wheel drives because there's no subframe that has to come down. This subframe here, but it stays. On most of the other ones, there's a whole subframe that has to come down like this. And so it's a little bit longer. So, and then of course, four-wheel drive SUVs got a transfer case on it, and that's a whole nother deal. Some of them you got to take the exhaust off, some of them you got to take the back catalytic converter off. So this is one of the easier ones. Just thought I'd show you a front wheel drive. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.